Well, welcome everyone to Raceface TV. We are so glad to be back with you this week. We've got a very exciting show. We're also glad to have Tom Baker back with us, and we're going to be going up to Mooresville, North Carolina in just a few minutes as he's got driver Dylan Smith in the studio with him. But first, let's get into our Raceface driver updates. Another huge weekend for the Raceface drivers, or should I say 2 weekends, since we were not with you last Wednesday due to Hurricane Irma. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for all of the emails, the social media posts, and most importantly, the prayers from the racing community. We had a few days without power, but we made it out safely. So let's take a look at the last 2 weeks and see what the Raceface brand development drivers have been up to. Let's get started with Sam Mayer. On the weekend of September the 8th, this young man was so busy, to say the least. 35 hours of racing in 2 days. He had 1 pole, 4 top 10s, 3 top 5s, and 2 wins. Sam won both races at Greensville Pickens Speedway Saturday night in his number 41 Menards Hawk McCall Motorsports late model. So this weekend didn't go so well for the young Wisconsin racer as he returned to Greenville Pickens Speedway. Sam qualified 3rd and finished 5th in the first main, and in the second main he started 4th but lost an engine while running 2nd. This weekend, Sam is running the Midwest Trucks at Wisconsin Dells Raceway. Let's now go out west and check out Raceface driver Ryan Vargas. You want to talk about a crazy weekend? Well, he had one. He returned to Irwindale Speedway on Friday the 8th, but was involved in an early practice accident. Now that's a bummer when you crash in practice, but that did not stop Team Vargas as they worked into the early hours on Saturday morning. From what I heard, it was 2 a.m. When they got back on the track, they qualified 12th and brought home a top 10 by finishing 6th place in the first main. In the second main, Ryan started 3rd, avoided yet another early race incident. Then Ryan and NASCAR Whelen All-American National Points leader Trevor Huddleston battled door to door, banging and beating on each other, and Ryan ended up bringing home a 4th place finish. Now let's fast forward 1 week. Ryan was at Kern County Raceway for the twin 30-lap late model features. Ryan was fastest in practice, qualified 3rd, and then he continued his winning ways by winning the first main event and then brought home a 2nd place finish in the second main. Up next for Ryan, Irwindale Speedway under the lights in the NASCAR Pick Your Parts Late Model Series. Let's shift back to the Midwest right now where we find the showstopper Sheldon Creed. On Thursday night, Sheldon returned to MDM Motorsports in his United Reynolds AM Ortega number 28 at Chicagoland Speedway, where he qualified 14th, but quickly moved inside the top 10. Now, he moved inside the top 10 in less than 2 laps because on lap 2, Sheldon was involved in an accident. Sheldon has scored 4 top 5 finishes and 7 top 10 finishes in 8 ARCA starts this season. Sheldon will be back in the number 28 ARCA car this weekend at Kentucky Speedway. Right before the show, I took a quick peek at the practice times from Kentucky Motor Speedway, and Sheldon had been bouncing back and forth between P1 and P2. You know what? I think there's a win in the future of Sheldon Creed, the showstopper, and I think it's going to happen this weekend. Raceface driver Jesse Love pulled triple duty on September 8th weekend at the Bull Ring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Jesse was P1 in qualifying for the junior late model race, but started P3 with the invert and worked his way up to 2nd, passing for the lead when he was involved in a race incident and ended up the night for both 1st and 2nd place cars. Jesse also took home a top 5 in the NX Legend Series and 2nd place finish in the NX Bandolero Series. Now, Adam Lemke was also racing at the Bull Ring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the number 21 junior late model, where he had a strong 3rd place finish. Again, fast forward a week, and both drivers were at the Harvest Classic at Madera Speedway, where they dominated practice, qualifying. Then when it's time to go racing, nothing changed. Adam brings home the win on Friday night, and Jesse captures the checkers on Saturday night. Both drivers will be back in action at Madeira Speedway in round 7 of the 5150 Energy Drink Junior Late Model Series as teammates. Jesse is currently the points leader with only 2 races remaining. Well, as you can see, it's been a busy 2 weeks. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to go up to North Carolina with Tom Baker and driver Dylan Smith.
I'm JDRF.
I am JDRF. I'm JDRF because...
I am JDRF.
Because... Type 1 diabetes is hard. I am JDRF because I advocate.
Because I am helping research progress.
Because I am part of a community of hope.
Because I believe we can find a cure. I'm JDRF because I'm gonna beat this.
Type 1 diabetes won't hold me back.
We are JDRF.
We are JDRF because we do big things.
We are JDRF
because they're the ones at the front lines doing what we need.
Every morning when I wake up, I am JDRF.
I am JDRF because I want an artificial pancreas. Because I am the mother of a type 1.
Because I am a fighter. Because I believe in them.
Because I want my kids to say they used to have diabetes.
Because I want to help others.
Because I believe we're all working together.
Because together we can build a community.
Helping to just raise awareness for type 1 diabetes.
I am JDRF because I want to see a world where type 1 becomes
type none diabetes. I am JDRF because I want a cure.
Welcome to Raceface Brand Development. You might be asking, what is Raceface Brand Development? We are all about helping young drivers get noticed while creating a brand. If your branding isn't part of your strategy and you're looking for a competitive advantage in the marketplace, I encourage you to reach out to us at Raceface Brand Development and let us provide you a free consultation on how we can help further your driver's career.
Ever need a doctor after hours? Well, searching won't help. But what do? You could go to the urgent care or ER, but if only there was a better way. Introducing the MNO Plus card. No waiting rooms, no copay, no consultation fee, giving you 24/7 access to a doctor by phone or online. It's easy to get started with affordable plans starting at $15 a month for a family of 5. For more information, visit mnoplus.com today.
Well, welcome back, everyone. And as I said, we're going to be going up to North Carolina. We're so glad to have Tom Baker back with us. And Tom's in the studio with driver Dylan Smith.
Thank you, Rod, and good to be back on Raceface TV. It's been a while since I've been able to be on the show. Happy to be back with you and with everybody in our audience here as we come to you now from Mooresville, North Carolina, our Race City USA PMN Race Chaser Studios. And joining me for this segment of the show is a young man named Dylan Smith. And Dylan is from Concord, North Carolina, right here in the greater Charlotte area. Dylan is 17 and kind of making his way in the sport. Now, Dylan, first of all, talk a little bit about your background. How did you get started in the sport?
You know, actually, it's a funny story. I started racing when I was little, of course, like everybody else. And I worked my way up through the ranks a little bit here and there and raced go-karts for a short time. And then I moved up to the Bandolero cars. And then from there, we were deciding if we wanted to go to the Mini Outlaws or the Legend cars. And we really didn't even know about the Mini Outlaws until we went over to Kyle Beatty's shop one day. And we went to go ask about a Legend car, maybe to test it, you know, and figure out if we really wanted to do that or not. And perhaps Derek Perniciglia was there and said, hey, you know, you should try and come watch one of these Mini Outlaw races. And I was like, what are those things? You know, they look pretty cool. And so he gave me a brief background about them. And I actually was really interested in them, so we went out to Millbridge that night and we watched them, and I loved them from there. And so I tested one a few times, and then finally we got one, and we've been running Millbridge here and there a lot recently. And from there, we've been trying to move up into our modified, but we've just been doing so good at Millbridge that we really hadn't even thought about it until now.
Well, let's back up for a little bit. Talk about what type of go-karting you did and some of the tracks you raced at, how that worked out for you.
Particularly, we only raced at the small track at Concord Speedway.
Oh, okay.
We only ran like 5 races or so. We had an old car, old motor, so we weren't the fastest thing out there, but we had a steady car. And so we ran a little bit there, and then finally realized, hey, we're not the greatest out here. We were running the back because of the old motor, and we didn't have the power the other guys had. So we quit racing that for a while, and I went back to playing baseball as a kid. And then finally, Christopher Woods called one day and said, hey, I have a Bandolero that is supposed to be running at Charlotte Motor Speedway at the road course tomorrow. Would you like to come run it for us? Because the driver backed out. And so
wow.
Definitely, free ride, heck yeah, let's go do it. So we went out there and we had a heck of a time. We started 10th and we finished somewhere up front, I believe like 3rd or so. And I came back up through the field about twice, I think, because I spun out. I'd never been on a real road course before, and so it took a little getting used to, and that was fun coming up through those things. And finally it got boring, so I was like, oh, what else can we do?
Yeah, well, I mean, given that you went from a go-kart to a Bandolero, now how old were you at that point? What class were you running in bandos?
Well, when I started racing the go-kart, I was 7.
Okay.
And I only did that for I think half a season, and so it didn't last long. And then I ended up getting into this bando ride at 10. So
so you had a couple of year break, probably.
Yeah, couple year break, and so ever since 10, I've been racing.
Well, that's interesting. So you come out of the Bandolero and you're looking at a Legends car, an old DP or DPTV, as we like to call them around these parts. Derek Bernasiglio, who is one of the commentators for NBC Sports Network. If you don't know who we're talking about. Talks you into looking at a Mini Outlaw, and away you go. Yeah. So much for the Legends cars, right?
For real. I didn't even know these things existed, and then all of a sudden I got there and I was like, whoa, what are those cool things over there with the wings on them?
Kyle didn't care because he has those too, so he's still okay. So talk about the transition from the Bandolero to the Mini Outlaw, because I don't think a lot of people realize that these Mini Outlaw karts are really almost the same horsepower to weight ratio when you get to the open class at the top of it as a World of Outlaws sprint car. Talk about the transition from the Bandolero to the Outlaw kart, given that A, you were going from pavement to dirt, which was new, and B, obviously a completely different kind of car.
Yeah, well, definitely one thing I'll get started with is I've always been a dirt track racer. I grew up in my backyard racing my four-wheeler around my dirt track, and I never really knew I was going to be a race car driver when I was little. I thought I was going to be a baseball player.
Oh, wow.
And I always knew racing was in the family, and I always liked watching it. Well, then finally I went and saw these cars, and to be honest with you, I was super scared of the open car. I was testing a 125 and had the time of my life. I was like, there's no way in heck that I'm going to get in one of those open cars and go as fast as those guys are doing it.
Wow.
So it was really wild going from a Bandolero to one of these cars, especially when we bought our first car. It was the 500 open car, but it was a sportsman class, as they like to call it back whenever I raced it. They only had a few races of them because of the limited car count, but it was definitely good experience for the couple races that I was in it.
And what was the hardest part about transitioning to the dirt?
Well, a lot of people say that, transitioning from asphalt to dirt is really hard, but when you grow up in your backyard running four-wheelers as sideways as you can,
I guess you're used to it,
yeah. That's about what my roots were.
That probably would have felt more natural to you than the Bandolero, really.
It still does. It's awesome.
Sure.
I mean, I'd love to go out and run, an asphalt late model or so, like a lot of my buddies are doing, but my roots are dirt tracking, and whenever I go to an asphalt track, I'd be trying to sling the rear end around that thing. I'd probably end up spinning out.
So you started, obviously, to run the Outlaw karts, and you got to a point where you did actually go to the open class. And, when I first started going to Millbridge, you had moved up, and I've watched you grow into a really, really top flight driver in that division. What did you have to sort of go through as a driver to be able to get from the bottom to the top of that? Because the open carts are a whole lot different than the smaller carts. Of course, I guess you never really ran the novice class or anything. You were automatically right into the sportsman class. Talk about that.
Bigger go home.
Yeah.
Right?
Talk about what it's like to run those open carts against some of the best in the country at what you do.
Well, I can tell you, you can't really compare it to anything. And I haven't been able to drive a real sprint car yet, which I really hope I can do one day. But I haven't gotten to share the differences between the two.
Okay.
Unlike some of the best like Kyle Larson and Colby Copeland and some of them. But what helps me most as a driver, I think, is racing with some of the best in the country.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I started when I came into the open class, I still had my sportsman class motor, so I didn't have all the power that the rest of the guys had, but I had the experience to run with the drivers. And so it helped me a lot running around people. You know, you have 5 or 10 people around you, and it's a lot better than 2 or 3. And you start learning things here and there, you know. And then after that, when you start getting the big motor and you start running up front with some other people, and then say Kyle Larson or somebody comes around that have been in these things their whole life,
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty special to run with them and be able to take notes on, hey, maybe I should change this and it'll help me get faster here. Maybe I can change that. And then one day you're out running them and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, I'm running with the best of the country and I can outrun them sometimes.
And some of the races that they have there, you know, you're racing against fields of 70, 80, 90 different carts from all across the nation. So it's really a great way to get experience, not only on the dirt for dirt specific things later on, if you're going to drive a sprint car, but also just in general, if you're looking for a car to sort of develop yourself with, you've got to really be a driver to hang on to those things. And I think when you transition back to the pavement, you know, you really have a good sense of car control coming out of that class, right?
Definitely. I have a lot of people come up to me and ask, hey, I'm at this stage. What should I do next? You know, and one thing I do mention is, hey, you know, the mini outlaws are great at car control and racing around people. You know, you're all up bumping and rubbing with people, but you're also having a clean race. You know, you go out, you race a Bandolero or a Legend car and you learn a lot, trust me. But when you tap wheels with somebody, say, then there goes $200 or so down the drain, and you know you have to start putting new parts on the car here and there. You know, there's some of these guys out at Millbridge that flip their cars over and then they can roll right back onto the racetrack and keep racing.
Stick a new wing on it and let's go.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
It is kind of neat. And when you think about just this year, you think about some of the drivers that have transitioned. You have a driver like Tanner Gray, who's actually come out of a mini outlaw and gone into a dragster, an NHRA dragster, and just actually won at Charlotte at ZMAX over the past weekend. Yeah. You moved up to a modified on dirt, and you've had a driver like Ryan Millington who goes away from the mini outlaw kart. And of course he had some experience in Legends cars as well, but just became the youngest late model champion in the history of Hickory Motor Speedway this year, winning the title at 15 years old. And, you know, again, it shows you sort of the array of different maturations of development that the drivers who've come out of the outlaw karts have gone through. And of course, we all know about guys like Larson and Rico Abreu, who sort of grew up in those things and now are in NASCAR and sprint cars or wherever.
Yeah, definitely. I give huge props to Ryan. You know, going from one car to the other, especially going from a mini outlaw to, for say, a late model or modified, even in my case, is about the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And, you know, it's just from going from a mini outlaw, you know, you turn and that thing goes. I mean,
right.
It's instant.
Very quick steering.
Yeah, definitely. There's no play there. And then you go to the modified for saying it's like driving a big old Cadillac.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just cruising down the interstate at 55 mile an hour like there ain't no care in the world. And then you get back in this mini outlaw and it's like people are blowing your doors off. You're wondering where they're all going.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, making that transition to the modified, as you said, it's obviously a much bigger car. It's much heavier and everything's different with relation to the way that it steers. You've had 3, 4, 5 outings now in your modified. Talk about how that's gone this year, that beginning of transition for you.
Yeah, honestly, it was great. You know, last October, we got to run the One Dirt Nationals in the modified, and I only got a few laps on the track due to some things we had wrong with the car. Well, it was really fun, and, you know, one thing I got out for practice, and I'm starting to look around, and I'm like, dang, last year my dream was to run the dirt track at Charlotte. Now I'm here running it. This is pretty cool. And we did really good that race. We started in about 12th, I think we qualified. There's 30 or 40 cars there, and we did really good. We hung with them, and I got up to 9th, and then I had a few difficulties and ended up spinning out there in the feature. But I mean, I went back to the rear, and I came back up to 12th, so you can't really ask for more than that.
No, you've really done well in the few outings that you've had in the car. Now, I also know that you've had an awful lot of people that have helped you along the way, coming up through in terms of, you know, sponsors, people, crew, you know, that you need to thank. And also, well, let's do that first, and then I'll give you one question before we get you out of here. Talk about who helps make it happen for Dylan Smith.
Definitely. Most importantly is my father. You know, he puts in countless hours working on the race cars and helping me. And, you know, we have a really good relationship of, hey, the car's doing this. We need to change this so that I can have drive here, drive there. And he's really good about making those changes and telling us what exactly it does. And then, you know, you have the safety aspect of it as the Joy of Seating. They have a really comfortable and safe seat. Always keeps me safe. You know, you wreck hard, and a lot of people, you know, come out and they're not so okay, and you just have nothing to do but thank the people that make your seats and keep you safe. Secondly is Simpson Racing Products. We have very safe suits and gloves and helmets, you know. And then we definitely have people on board the car that help make the car actually, you know, SRI, they provide all the aluminum and everything is that aspect of it, building new body panels every week, tearing them off, you know.
SRI
and
Performance,
then,
yep.
Definitely Grease Monkey of Salisbury, Dan Newell, he helps out a lot. He's gone from both cars, and, you know, it's hard when you're a local company based out of one place. And, you know, there's more attention, obviously, in Millbridge, being closer to the actual store versus, say, you go and run Carolina modified. So I really appreciate what he's done for us and helping us out as much as he can for what he gets back from it. And we hope that we can keep him on board, but we'll see what goes on from there, you know.
In about 30 seconds before we get you out of here, talk about what you're doing with Hayes Motorsports with Roy Hayes and his late model, because that's giving you an opportunity to learn how to work on the race cars as well as being behind the wheel driving them.
Definitely. There's about 3 of us over there. We work for Roy Hayes, who's driving the late models now, and we have a few different cars that we run different places, you know, and the thing about him is he's an up-and-coming driver like me, so it's cool to work with somebody like that and relate, you know, what you do in that position versus what he's doing. And then also I'm working on the cars so I can help out first. And then second, I'm learning more so I can go home and work on my own stuff and then figure out from there, you know?
Well, there you have it, Rod. 17-year-old Dylan Smith from Concord, North Carolina. Yet another young racer who's trying to find a way to make it up the ladder in this sport. And that's what Raceface TV is all about. Back to you, Rod.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Tom. And Dylan, good luck to you for the remaining part of the season. Well, everybody, we're glad that you were here with us this week. And as always, we ask you to make sure that you go out to Raceface and like us on our Facebook page. Make sure to go out and like all of the Raceface drivers and like their page as well. And the one thing that we always leave you with is go out to your local track and support local racing in your community. And we'll see all of you back here next week. Everybody have a great race weekend.